All right, we are live here today. It's Thursday today. I'm confused on what day it is because Tim Shaw and I just traveled to Jacksonville, Florida. We left on Tuesday morning and got down there. We're crazy busy while we were there looking at different properties and some different development sites that we're looking at. And then I didn't get back until about 1 o'clock last night. So it's a quick trip for me. But yeah, when you travel like that, it gets kind of crazy, and feel like I get thrown off. Plus, Tim threw a bomb in the middle of my work week, and so I had to move a lot of things around. So I'm getting caught up on all those. So it is Thursday. It is 11 o'clock Eastern time. I'm with David Benson, which is super awesome that he's here today because we met through Legacy Family. We were at an event in Nashville probably about a month ago now.
Yep.
And, I know we were talking about this before we started going live, was that we had seen kind of each other on Facebook and social media, but never really connected. And happened to just sit down at dinner together, started chatting, and it was really neat how we just kind of were able to kind of help each other out and talk through some different things. And we were just talking about that before. That's the reason why I go to these events, these masterminds, kind of get in the room with folks because all the speakers are cool, the person hosting it's great, but really I think we're both there to expand our minds, meet other people that are in the circle, and I think something super important for me is finding real operators, which you clearly are. We're going to talk about that today. So, David, I appreciate you jumping on with me.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the invite to come and talk about my favorite subject, real estate.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So for those that don't know you, I know that I didn't give a whole lot of time for people to kind of like look at like what we were going to talk about, but quick down and dirty of your bio is that you were a mortgage lender, kind of became an accidental landlord. You were looking to sell your primary home, and I believe you couldn't sell it. You decided to rent it. You realized, that was kind of when you figured out what cash flow was or what that looked like. You read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad, and then since then you've scaled what you're doing quite tremendously to have over 180 single family homes. You just GP'd on a over 330 unit apartment building 2 or 3 years ago that you guys are working through still. So I think it's amazing because your story is like a lot of people's. It's very similar to mine, where you started off as a regular W-2 employee, didn't know any of the stuff that we're going to talk about today, and just kind of stumbled upon it, and it's changed your life for the better. So, maybe share with everybody kind of what that looks like kind of how you got started and what that, those first little while looked like.
Yeah, it's crazy to think back and how, I don't want to say how quickly, things happen, but I could not have imagined how things would have turned out, because just doing that traditional kind of the Rich Dad Robert Kiyosaki book was a game changer for me, because I feel like I've lived it. We're taught from a very early age that you go and you get a W-2 job and you work hard and you climb the corporate ladder. Well, I did that. And like you mentioned, I was a mortgage banker for 25 years, worked for, a large bank, and had really no reason to leave. I don't have one of those stories, Seth, where it's like, oh, I hated my boss and the job sucked and I hated going to work. I had a lot of freedom. I was straight commission. So although I worked for, I'll just say it, Bank of America, I don't know if I can say it or not. I don't care. They can't fire me.
Yeah, right.
But I climbed that ladder, and get this, I felt like at the end, I was working with Merrill Lynch and $1 million clients and blah, blah, blah. And I was doing their lending and doctors and that type of stuff. So I felt I'd hit the pinnacle, the NFL of lending, where all the people were wearing $1,000 suits and had gone to Ivy League schools and stuff like that. But they still didn't have freedom, So even at that level, like that arrival state where you've put your ladder on the right wall and you've climbed and you've gotten to where you've arrived, so to speak, you're still, like, for example, I couldn't go on a vacation and not take my laptop and not have phone calls while I was sitting on the beach. So even though, it wasn't this horrible situation, I knew there was something better. And it's just like what Rich Dad Poor Dad talks about. If you haven't read that book, it's a game changer. It's like taking that pill in the Matrix. Once you've had your eyes opened, you can't go back. And like you had mentioned, the group, Tim was very instrumental in convincing me to take that leap, because it's a hard leap to jump from the security, or what we think is the security that I can only speak to now, having been out of it for a couple of a W-2 bank corporate job. But he was very instrumental in saying, okay, Dave, like, quite honestly, I don't know if he, talked to you about this, but he said, like, if you show up to this group and you still have your W-2 job, you're in trouble. Like, because here's the thing. I know now on this side how much more freedom there is, and how much, honestly, more security there is than any kind of corporate job.
Yeah. I would say I would agree. So I was the same situation as you. I loved my job. I've been a fireman for a long time, and I didn't leave because I hated it or because I didn't like who I worked with or who I worked for or whatnot. But
or what you were doing.
Yeah. And, but to your point too, about security, like my sister she's a nurse practitioner and she's worked for the same hospital for 11, maybe 12 years. And they kind of rallied everybody together and said, hey, we're laying 200 of you off and you're one of them. And, done nothing wrong, had no problems, had great, was making good money for the hospital, whatnot. Is just that it was Q4 of 2022 and they got numbers they got to hit and budgets they got to keep, and they let go of a ton of people from all different levels. It wasn't just like at her level, but she just happened to be one that called me and was like, hey, you're not gonna believe this, but I just got called in the office today and they gave me my 30-day notice, like I'm done. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me, and
you would think in that role, in that field, that's about as much in demand as any role in the world at this point, healthcare.
But hospitals are businesses just like anything else, and they've got they got investors they have to answer to. They have, different committees and boards that they all have to, it all has to work together. And that's I will say that I saw a lot of that when I was in EMS and in the healthcare field, is that it is definitely a business. And I think anybody that has insurance or doesn't have insurance or goes from having insurance to not having insurance, and it's just it's very interesting to be on that side of things and see it that way. Or, like if you had insurance and then you go to being cash pay, the discount or the what the real price of it is if you're paying with cash versus what the insurance price is.
Right.
That's a whole nother conversation, but that was,
you're never really secure. Like and the beauty of being self-employed, one of the advantages is you have to fire yourself, which is most likely not going to happen. So it's way more security, and honestly, the insurance is what's crazy. You're talking about insurance. My insurance benefits are better now than it was with, Fortune 100 companies. So anybody that's watching this, don't let that dissuade you as well. Because that was always my fear in jumping out. I'll go out and I won't have that insurance benefits. I've got 4 small kids and a wife. Like, that's a big risk.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. We're going through that ourselves, because I transitioned out in June and it's like, what do you do? How do you do it? And so we've had a lot of good calls of other entrepreneurs that have been doing it for a while to figure out what's the best way to accomplish that. But so you were a mortgage broker or a mortgage lender, you were enjoying your W-2, you liked what you did. You read Rich Dad Poor Dad. You felt like that kind of unplugged you, and you kind of saw things from a different angle, which is the same for me, same book.
Yeah.
It altered my view of things just enough of a degree to where I thought, man, there really is something better. There really is something that I could obtain. And all the things that I'm afraid of in the future, I can't earn enough. Like right now, it would be real tough. That's your only income is your paycheck. You can't work enough hours to cover the gap of inflation and what you're seeing right now with the cost of everything rising. At least I feel like that anyways. So
totally true.
So walk us through that. So you were like, how did you get your, the first rental? What that looked like and how scary was that for you?
Yeah. I mean, I get that question all the time. It's like, okay, where do I get started? It seems so daunting, and there is a learning curve, to getting into the real estate game. So my story was I had a house, just my primary residence, 3-bedroom, 2-bath. And I thought I'd read Rich Dad Poor Dad. And I thought, okay, well, what if I just tried to rent it, and I wouldn't have to go through all the trouble of getting a realtor and all this other stuff. And so I was going from, my, starter home, 3-bedroom, 2-bath to a nicer home. And what I found out is I rented it like immediately. A nice couple that had moved. I was living at Winston-Salem, North Carolina at the time. And they moved in, started paying rent. Well, it cash flowed about $400. So my payment on the first mortgage was like I was used to paying like say 1,200. My new payment was going to be like 2,000. So that $400 spread meant my net hit to me was maybe $400. So to me, it made perfect sense. Being a banker, I was like, I can get twice as much house, and my payment only goes up effectively by $400
Mm-hmm.
between the cash flow that's coming in.
Yeah.
So I was like, whoa, that really was a light bulb moment where I was like, oh, okay, this could work. So that was really my first delve into real estate. And this was back in like 2004, something like that. But to be honest with you, I started doing, this was right getting into like 2008 when there were all those foreclosures. I was picking up some properties and starting to do some lease options because banks weren't lending anymore. So that was another nuance that comes with real estate is you got to be creative, you got to be flexible. You have to kind of roll with the times because it's constantly changing as we're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing right now.
Yep.
Inflation, flipping is getting more difficult, those type things. So you got to be flexible, and you kind of have to, you can't be a one trick pony, So I did lease options there for a while, and I was able to acquire more properties. But the interesting thing is it took me, to give you kind of a timeline. It's not like this, like, took off. It's not like it was rags to riches. That's not my
Mm-hmm.
story. It was gradual. So it was 1, then it went to 3, then it went to 5, then it went to 8. And it probably took me about, I don't know the exact timeline, but let's say 12. I've been investing for like 18 years. So let's say it took me 14 years to get to 25 properties. So it wasn't like I had this, like, I discovered gold,
Mm-hmm.
It's sometimes it can be a gradual progression, but I was acquiring these properties, I was cash flowing and just sinking the money back into the business. But it really wasn't until I kind of stepped away, that it really kind of, you've heard of that, like, hockey stick, when
Mm-hmm.
you're in the flow chart, it doesn't just go gradual like that. It goes do, 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 wham, and then really takes off. So when I stepped away from corporate and I could just solely focus on finding deals and doing what I'm passionate about, which is real estate, that's when it really kind of, just kind of ramped up.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you say that because Tim and I were just talking about that the other day. Was that you kind of like when I was still, in the fire service and doing real estate, and
Yeah.
you start to get to a point where you kind of felt like I felt like Superman and Clark Kent, where you're
Yeah.
one person at your W
Yeah.
two job, like you're going to work, you're doing the lending, you're doing your thing, but then when your day's off, you're doing this other thing that like is super cool. That's really kind of becoming more of your passion than maybe what you're currently doing. And you're trying, like, I feel like everybody I've talked to comes to a point where they're like at a crossroad where they
Yeah.
kind of have to make a choice, right? They get to a point where like you can do real estate enough and maintain your job, but you're limiting your growth. And if you desire to go beyond whatever that is, maybe it's 2 houses,
Mhm.
maybe it's 1 house, maybe it's 5, maybe it's a 20 unit, whatever that looks like for that person.
Right.
It's like you get to that point where you have to kind of make that choice. Like, do I want to continue to grow and pursue something that is for me, or do I want to stay where I'm doing and kind of hold on to that security, what you think to be security?
Right.
And and then if you do that, then the growth in real estate will dwindle. And so I mean, it's interesting that you got to that point as well. That seems to be a common theme between everybody, that
Yeah. You have to,
you
like,
know
make that
you
leap
have
of
to.
faith, essentially.
Yeah.
But I encourage people too, even if real estate isn't going to be your full-time thing, maybe it's not your passion, still do it. And what I would encourage people to do is buy one rental property. And check this out. This is kind of fun. Let's say there's a dream. Let's say you want to take a cruise. Like for me, let's say you want to take a cruise to the Mediterranean. It's going to cost $6,000, whatever it is. Have a rental property and call it the cruise house, right? So what happens is if you're cash flowing $300 a month, $200 a month, every month you're socking that away into the cruise account, because real estate can be a grind. It can be like turning over tenants, fixing toilets, those type things. But if you've got a goal in mind, hey, at the end of 15 months, we're going to take that dream cruise, except we're going to have somebody else pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
Then you can kind of get over that hurdle. And maybe that's what gets you over the hump of saying, is it worth the risk? Is it worth the trouble of having to educate myself on how to become a landlord, how to become an investor, these type things. So that's one aspect. But then you might find out that you love it, like you and I do. And, oh, what happens if I get 10 properties, 20 properties, 100 properties, and I can just do this full time? It's fun to realize that there's all kinds of different levels of investing within the same, real estate field.
Yeah. And I would, to speak to something that you were just saying there, like it's like if you buy one house and you're cash flowing, and, I know that a lot of people are always like, well, and I've said it before too, right? The reason I jumped into multifamily was because it spread out my risk. And if I, as
Yeah.
far as vacancy goes or problems with the building, you just had a broader base of income coming in so that you could fix those things and still cash flow. Where in the single family space, if you have one house and the people move out, you're paying the mortgage, or, if something goes wrong, it could wipe out, the way I always looked at it was it would wipe out your entire year of earnings that you had. But I would say that, it like that was my thinking of it when I was going at it alone. When I was going into real estate investing and I was new and I didn't really know anything, what I was supposed to be looking for. And you heard all the horror stories. I mean, I remember my wife talking about that, like, oh, I don't want to get calls at 2 a.m. You got to go fix something, or on Christmas or Thanksgiving. And, you missed the whole holiday because you're off doing something, and those were always fears that we had or things that we had heard from people. And I realized as I got into it more that the people that we heard those from, they were experiencing those things because they were doing it wrong. Right. And I think that there's a right way to do it and there's a wrong way to do it. And the wrong way to do it is to not do due diligence and not know what you're getting into, and to just buy the cheapest property that you can find and think that it's, all the cash flow is great, but all the deferred maintenance that you're going to have to pay for to catch up on it is, it will eat up all your cash flow. Or if you don't finance it right, or you don't go in and do all the CapEx right off the bat and fix those things, and it kind of leads me to I guess the point of like, finding a mentor or getting in the room with people that are already investing. That was one of the 3 steps that I was told was read Rich Dad Poor Dad, find a local real estate meetup, and then get a mentor. And, I think that if you did those things, and maybe you've read that book, and then you're looking is, how has that impacted you? Like when you were making that transition, bought your first house, did you have a mentor? If not, at what point did you find somebody else that was investing, or you're like, oh, you're also a landlord, and then now you got something in common? Because I find that a lot where, real estate investors love to talk to each other. We love to share information. I love to hear people's stories. I know that that's when you and I met, we sat and talked for at least an hour and a half, 2 hours on operations and property management and all the different things that we're both experiencing. And did you find that in your early in your investing career, or did you go at it alone for a while?
Yeah, no, I went at it alone, and I completely agree with you. I think that hockey stick curve really happened when I finally decided I didn't have to do it all myself, because you have to find mentors. You have to find people that you can share, swap stories with, and learn from one another. Just getting around people like yourself and the group that we're a member of, it creates this believability, and it really expands your mindset of what the possibilities are. Who you surround yourself is, I think they say the top 5 people that you're around is who you're going to be 5 years from now, or something to that effect.
Mm-hmm.
Really where I experienced that hockey stick growth is when somebody said, okay, Dave, have you thought about this? Okay, when I was in your place, this is what the next level is for you. I would recommend anybody out there that's looking to get in real estate. Couple things. One, don't manage your own properties when you get blank. I would say manage your own properties initially, especially in the single family realm, just so you get a feel for it. But then once you get to 10, even hire a third party management, and then secondly or thirdly, get around other people that are doing what you want to do, or maybe at a place in life that you want to aspire to. And because that's just I can't even describe the magic of it. I mean, when you got around people, one thing is when I first went to Tim's group, um, Jeremy Butler was the first guy I met.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, listen, you're going to meet somebody here that's doing really well that you're going to say, if that guy can do it, I know I can do it.
Yeah.
He's like, and he followed it up by saying, I hope I'm not that guy for you. But it's so true. You realize these guys, they're not Ivy League, they're not Einsteins, and I'm not downplaying any of them. It's just it expands your brain to say, okay, listen, this guy's not a rocket scientist. I can do this. I just need to make the right moves and not make the same mistakes, repeat the same mistakes they had. And that's the beauty of having a mentor.
Yeah, and I think that's so different than the way like it used to be. Like my stepdad has been in real estate for a long time, had rentals. He was always the guy, always doing the work, did all the
Yeah,
leasing, he did everything, right? And he did well. I mean, he did well for himself. He grew his portfolio. I mean, he's been successful at it, but your growth gets limited by that as well. You can't, some people want to control everything. Other people just do it out of the, like they can't get over like, I don't want to pay this amount of money for a third party service. So they do it, but what they're giving it, they've just bought themselves another job where now they're the guy having to go do everything. And it's really the opposite of why you and I got into it, was for time freedom.
right.
And I think that there's that's the other thing when I talk to people too, is that there's a struggle. I think just like any new business is, there's between going from $0 to $100,000 a year, or $0 to $500,000 a year as a business, there's different struggles in there, even going to $1 million, and you have to get, like in the very beginning, it's a huge grind, and it's a ton of work, and it's, you're trying to get this thing off the ground. And, I don't remember
too.
Yeah, and I don't remember who told me, but they talk about, and I mean, again, I'm not a pilot, but they say, what I was told was that planes expel, I won't say 90%, but a huge amount of their fuel taking off and climbing to the height that they need to be at in order to fly,
Right.
where they're supposed to be most efficient, and where we would expect, like being on a plane yesterday, hey, we're at 30,000 feet. But to take off and to climb to 30,000 feet, and once you get there, it's not smooth sailing, but you're using less fuel to move it, to move from east to west than you are, going from the ground up there. And I've always thought about that when it comes to this real estate investing in business, is that, you're creating something out of nothing, and you're going to expel a lot of energy and a lot of brain power and just mental bandwidth, kind of creating that. I mean, do you feel that happened to you as well?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's I think the other thing that hit me, to your point, is it is a learning curve. You've got to get outside of your comfort zone, which I hate doing, but that's the only way that you really see growth. But once you get going, once you get the ball rolling, it's kind of amazing how it continues to grow, both your lifestyle, your freedom, your tax advantages, your quite honestly, legacy wealth. I mean, again, getting back to the W-2 job, there was nothing I could work. And I'm telling you right now, I prided myself on, I was a salesman, prided myself on hitting those numbers, right? But then at the end of the year, that plaque would go on the wall that I worked so hard for, but I couldn't take that plaque off and put food on the table for my kids.
Mm-hmm.
And more importantly, I couldn't take that plaque from 2018 and pass that on to my kids. So there is I don't care what level you grow to in any kind of corporate job, you're not passing that income on to your kids like you can with real estate. I mean, the real estate that I hold right now, the plan is to die with it, and my kids do whatever they want to with it, but I'm passing on a legacy that my parents didn't pass on, and no fault to their own.
Right.
My dad was like military. He couldn't really pass that on. But how important is that to actually build something that's going to be here beyond when I'm gone? And maybe they get into it, maybe they don't, but it's going to give them a leg up that no corporate job was ever going to do.
Well, and probably nobody in your past generations have ever done that either.
No.
You know what I mean? And that's the same thing for me, is that, I'm the first one in my line of heritage that I know of that will leave what I'll leave for my kids or for my family. And that's the thing that's what, part of what inspires me. But, how do you think, at least for me, what we just talked about, getting a mentor, getting in the right room with people, that
Mhm.
accelerates that curve or that rough patch. And to me,
Yeah.
it's like, once you recognize that real estate is something that you want to get into and you understand buying assets versus liabilities or buying assets to pay for your liabilities is the keys to freedom. Getting through the growth phase or that rough phase that really nobody wants to go through because it's tough.
Right.
But hiring a mentor or getting in the right room with people, whether it's a local meetup or whatever it is, that is the fastest way to get through that patch and that time frame in your kind of investing career. Is that you feel like that's accurate? How you experience as well?
Yeah, it's the difference between putting nitrous in your car. You can put regular 87 gas in your car and you're going to go, versus I would, and again, I'm the poster child for not doing this, right? Trying to do it on my own for 15 years. I would just say wisdom is when you can go to somebody and say, hey, what would you do at this spot? And that's the other thing with real estate in general. I found that people are willing to share. There's no like trade secrets. We're not. I will say in real estate, like real estate companies, like realtors and things like that, it's like it's not the same in real estate investing. Like you and I, we were sitting at the same table. We were sharing. You were nice enough to share some of your, some of the templates that you had, because there's no real trade secrets to the game. We're all in the game. We're all at different levels. We're all learning and trying to get to that next level. But mentorship is critical. I would tell anybody that you got to be careful, because I'm sure there's some shysters out there that are just going to kind of sell you a package and move on. I've done those before. But really join a group, get a mentor that it can work with you, and just learn, just study under. I tell you what, if I could go back, all right, if I could go back in time and I was 19-year-old Dave again, honestly, what I would do, I'd go find the richest person I knew in real estate that was the most successful, that I liked, that actually had a life and was a father, and wasn't just like a one-dimensional douchebag. I just knew that person. And I would say, listen, dude, I'm going to work for you for the next 90 days for free. And at the end of 90 days, if you don't find me invaluable, if you hadn't found me valuable at all, then fire me. But don't even pay me for 90 days, because that 90 days, again, this is if you're 19. If you're 35, 2 kids, you probably can't do this. But man, I wish I could go back and do that, because the amount of stuff that you learn. Can you imagine if you had done that?
At 19, yeah, it'd be crazy where you'd be at, at 29 or 30 or 40, where I'm at now.
Yeah, it's almost like The Apprentice. We saw Bill. Like, imagine apprenticing under Trump. I don't care what your political affiliation is, you're still going to get a lot of value out of that apprenticeship. So it's no different whether you're 19 or whether you're 60. Find somebody that is where in life where you want to be. Pay them to be your coach or mentor if you really want to have quick success. I would advise that.
And I definitely, I would 100% agree. And you definitely got to do your due diligence on some of those folks, because you want to make sure they're real operators, that they're really, what they're telling you is truthful, that they've lived it, that it's not just a facade, because there's plenty of that out there. But so how did you go?
2 years. I'm a guru. I've been doing it 2 years, whatever.
How did you go from, like, let's talk about that. So you did your first rental, you kind of operated alone for 14, 15 years. Did you go from one rental to the 180 plus single family homes in those 15 years on your own? And then, you did the multifamily project with a group, did you start getting mentored or partnering with somebody? Like, where in there did that happen? Or, how did you go from your first rental and understanding the concepts to 180 doors of residential? Because that's no feat, right? I mean, I could go out and buy 2 apartment complexes that equal 180 doors. And I think that, that's fairly easy, right? That's why I got into multifamily, because it's not transactional. They're bigger deals and I can scale fast. But for you to go out and to get that, there's very few people that reach that level of portfolio size in single family? I mean, I can think of a couple off the top of my
Or
head right
want
now,
to.
but
Yeah, or want to. I mean, everybody gets
yeah.
out of single family into multifamily. That's the transition.
Yep.
Um, Again, what I would say is that leap from 1 to 25, you're just capped out in what I could do. So I had to go to third party management. And then once I did that, and I literally turned over 95% of the work to somebody else for 8, 9, 10%, I was like, whoa, imagine giving your W-2 job to somebody else and they do 95% of your work and you have to pay them 10% of what you make.
Mm-hmm.
It's a no brainer, right? So, but I was super stubborn. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but I learned slowly, but I can recognize the value of the wheel. So once I did that, then I started freeing up my time, and my time got allocated towards looking for deals. And then also I was able to maybe leverage some of the equity that I'd built in those properties to acquire more package deals.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, and I don't have it in front of me, but to give you an idea of the hockey stick, it was like first 14 years to get to 25. And then I bought a package. It was like 24, and the numbers may not work out exactly, but you'll get the gist. Basically 24 deals the next year, like 58 deals the next year. And now keep in mind, I'm not flipping. These are all like fixer
Right.
upper,
Yep.
value add type stuff. It was like 30 or 42 the next year. So it was really like in the last 4 years, and started to get more into the multifamily, a 24 unit
Mm-hmm.
apartment, a quadruplex, an eightplex, because I can see the value of, like you're talking about, having everything under one roof, the scalability of it. There is a lot of value in having the multifamily, but really just imagine if you could free up 95% of your time to just looking for deals, lining up the financing, creating the relationships, educating yourself. And that's where it really kind of ramped up. And then each person has to figure out what their goal is, what maybe somebody doesn't want. Like, I don't particularly want 4,000 doors.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, but again, I'm not at that level. I can tell you what it takes to get to, 181 homes plus the other stuff, but I can't tell you what it's like to be at 4,000. So we're all at different levels of growth, and the growth isn't any less painful going from 181 to 500, right?
Yeah.
It's just at what point it just gets a little easier because now it works. Like, you've got
Yeah.
the confidence to know, okay, like I could stop working today and I don't have any wood to knock on, but like I don't have to worry about money. Like it's going to keep going because the wheels are going to continue to
Right.
roll.
Yeah. And yeah, like you said, I mean, I think everybody's benchmark for success is different. Everybody's what they want is different. I think that because I'll have people ask me that, like, well, when's enough, or when's, well,
Exactly.
where, when does it stop? Or when do you have a set number? Like, if you reach this, it's going to be enough and you're going to be done. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like Gary Vee, if you follow him, it always talks about how he just loves the game and he
Yeah.
doesn't really have any like end in sight. And he wouldn't be happy at 70 years old fishing and just hanging out doing nothing all
Right.
day. Like, he enjoys the grind and just the that fulfills him. And I feel like that in a lot of ways, that I enjoy that, but I know it becomes a lot more fun when your bases are covered, your
Yeah.
immediate needs of your family or your lifestyle or whatever are met. Then anything after that is just gravy, or it's just the cherry on top. It's just the extra
Yeah.
stuff. Uh, and obviously you've reached that. So, what, when did you, I know, 2020, you GP'd on the 300 plus unit deal.
Mm-hmm.
What did it look like? So you were, doing the single family kind of on your own. How did you meet the group that is it you and one other person? Is it you and another group? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how did that partnership come together? Because I think that a lot of people get scared of partnering with people, but I have found strategic partnerships have been again, like you said, jet fuel in your car. I mean, it's been
Yeah.
accelerated our growth tremendously when we pick the right people to work with on certain projects. So what did that look like for you? How did that kind of
That's it's
start?
kind of a funny story. Like, and again, to encourage anybody that's watching this, like, there was this 336 unit apartment complex. a decent area of town in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, where I'm at. And I knew I felt pretty good that it was a good deal, but it was a huge deal. And so I offered $12 million. Now, Seth, I don't have $12 million.
Right.
I don't have $12 million. Like I was W-2 job. Like this is not, not just laying around. I'm not a trust fund baby or anything like that. Well, I didn't get it. Right. But I figured at 12 million, I could find the money somehow, some way. So anybody out there that's watching this, like sometimes you just got to put yourself out there and figure it out, So it went for 18. And I was like, okay, what the heck? Like, I'm just not even in the ballpark. So I'm like, I got to figure out what I don't know. Because if somebody's willing to pay 18 for this property, which in retrospect was an absolute steal.
I was about to say, to get that many doors for that price is in that market is pretty darn good.
Yeah. So I just started putting the feelers out there, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to find out who bought this, and I'm going to find out what they know, because I'm a banker. Like, the numbers have to make sense. And what was interesting is I did get a hold of them, the DeRosa Group, which is out of like Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm familiar with them.
Yeah. Great guy, Matt Faircloth and Justin Frazier.
I was saying, I actually messaged Justin Frazier before we jumped on here today. So
you didn't.
I did. Yeah. I love Justin's podcast is great. I love his podcast because they're the real deal, real operators.
Well, I was like, listen, you need some boots on the ground. So I basically got a hold of them and said, I want behind the curtain, and just convinced them that they needed somebody. They're all the way up there. I know the market. If something goes bad, you need somebody that's right there. And just convinced them, that.
Man, I love that.
It just made sense. Like, they needed somebody there. And what if something blows up? You got a contractor that runs out with all your materials, or you need a contractor, So I just got my foot in the door.
Well, let's pause right there for a second, because I think that is amazing. Is that you worked up the courage enough to make an offer on a property. You're way off, right? But it was a stretch for you to make the offer, right? We can kind of chuckle about it now, but I'm sure just you submitting the offer was scary, because you're like, what if I actually get this? And again, for anyone watching that doesn't know, like, he's not actually going to pay 12 million cash himself, right, but to come up with a down payment and to be able to actually execute the deal, it's a lot, especially if it's your first one. But what I love is that you said, who actually bought that? And like, how did they do it? And like, you didn't just think about that and then just go on about your single family business and the way you've been doing things. Like, you actually sought them out and made them listen, and that's the thing. Is I feel like I was just talking to Ryan McShay, who's a good friend of mine, and he's in Jacksonville. We were just talking about that and how he got his job. And the same thing, he basically rattled the cages of the business owner and was like, look, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I understand that, like, for him, same thing. I know what you're doing is amazing. I want to be a part of it. I'm not going anywhere. And, you sought them out. I mean, they're a big group. I mean, Matt does a lot of stuff with Bigger Pockets. They've got a lot of other things going on. I know he's got a big YouTube presence. Like, for you to reach out to them, and I'm sure they blew you off in the beginning, but to keep on, getting yourself in front of them and having the tenacity to go after that is, dude, bravo, man. I love that. I absolutely love that.
And what I would say is also be a resource. Don't just expect something for nothing. Like, get in there. What do you add value?
Yes.
Like, I really do think, again, somebody's getting they need a boots on the ground. Anybody out there that's doing something you could, but it gives more peace to have somebody, and they'll give you a slice of the pie.
Yeah.
You've got to convince them that you are a resource, that you bring value, what that value is, because human resource, honestly, like, relationships that you establish are way more valuable than dollar amounts, if it's through good resource. So make sure you're a resource, make sure you are bringing value. You're not just riding somebody's coattail.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you what was interesting, and this is something that I found out, was getting behind the curtain. The reason they were able to make that kind of offer is there's so many other ways to make money, as you know, in multifamily, through washer and dryer rentals, through, pet deposits, through all stuff that through cable and internet alliances that generated so much more money that they could offer 18.
Yeah.
Blew my mind. I was like,
Yep.
oh, that's how we do it. Um, so yeah, that was my foot in the door, and it's been a great experience. Like we're flipping, essentially turning 336 units, um, getting the rents back up to market. I mean, this property had a murder before we closed on it, like, and it's come so far to where now, we've got nurses that want to live there, but it's a process,
Oh,
and
absolutely. Yeah. Rebranding a property like that, not, you can't just throw some paint on the walls
no,
and like, and throw a new sign out front and expect that the neighborhood and the people in that community are going to forget, the stains, literally of blood that have been shed there.
yeah, literally.
There's a lot of work that goes into turning around an apartment building, but one of that size is a massive, massive task as well. So,
And it's been great to see rents. But the perk of that is when you're on the other side and you start to get out the bad apples. It doesn't take a
yeah,
lot of bad apples, to mess up a complex. You get those
100%.
out, and then I'm able to, just like somebody that's getting in on their first single family home, I'm able to kind of educate myself on what does it look like to have a a budget of this kind of rehab, and what works and what doesn't work. And so it's been really fun, and educational to get behind the scenes. But the other nice thing about it, and this is what I would encourage anybody, another takeaway, is when you're at that level, you're able to hire A players as opposed to just kind of scrimping by.
Yeah.
And that has been kind of eye opening for how I run my single family home business, as opposed to just trying to hire the cheapest person.
Yeah, and that's 100%. I mean, you get to a certain level and you're like, it just the A players that we've always hired on the front end cost more, but they've
Yeah.
always made us money. And the C players or the average folks that we were like, oh, they're kind of more in line with what we can afford today, have always
Yeah.
cost us more money in inefficiencies or not providing value or not coming up with solutions and bringing us problems. And and that's, I feel like, the difference. And something that you said earlier, was that not just riding coattails, but providing value. Like, I would say to anybody that is looking to do what you did with Matt, or to do what I did on my first person that I was ever a mentor to me, is provide a solution to a problem.
Yes.
Either figure it out on your own, like you did, where, hey, you're going to need boots on the ground. I'm already here. I'm already an investor. I have a presence here. I know the market. Like, you're solving a problem for them. They're way more apt to let you come into the deal. Like, because you presented a great case. They do need that. And
Hmm.
even for us, I did that to my first mentor. We've got a guy right now that's managing construction for us, and it's the same thing. He came to us. He's a local guy that I've known for a while, but never thought to kind of bring him into the inner circle. And he's a GC that's also a real estate investor, and he's solving a problems for us right now. And it just,
Yeah.
that's how he gets in, right? Is that he's, because there's 1,000 people that want to get in that provide no solution to anything, or easement of burden for us, and we just don't have time for it. And you're not being a jerk, but it's the same thing. I'm sure Matt gets,
Yeah.
or Justin get people call him all the time or try to connect with them or whatever, that want to be a part of what they're doing, but offer
Right.
no real solution to anything that an issue they have, where you did. So I think that's just
That's,
awesome. I mean,
that's such a great point. And here's the thing: anybody watching this, contact Seth or myself. We have lots of problems. If you can be a solution for us, you're hired.
yeah,
It's that simple.
yep,
So yeah. Reach out to either one of us. We'll find a problem you can fix. But like, and I hate to say this, but I think you would agree. Like, if this is bad to say, but I'm just going to say it. Like, somebody's like, "Hey, can I take you to lunch?" You may get a lot of that, but they're not really. Listen, if you want to get David Benson, take me to lunch and solve a problem, and we'll. I am not opposed to working with anybody, that is willing to work and can be resourceful, because that's really what it takes. If you boil it down, I don't care what industry you're in, be resourceful, add value, and don't be take the first step. That's really the biggest thing. I think that's where 95% of the people fail, is there's just analysis to paralysis, and they're afraid to take that first step and put themselves out there and be vulnerable.
yeah, yeah. I would 100% agree. And I can tell you one thing that I do is, especially if I don't know the person. Now, if it's somebody from, I've had people from I went to high school with, that have saw, seeing something like this that we're doing today, and then they'll
Yeah,
reach
yeah,
out. And I mean, people that I have a past relationship with, I'll take time. But if it's somebody
right.
new that reaches out, that's like, like you said, hey, can I take you to lunch? Hey, you want to grab a coffee? Hey, I'd like to pick your brain about something, because I get that a lot. I'm like, look,
Yeah,
I'll give you a 15-minute phone call, and
yeah,
it's kind of like your elevator pitch. Like, what do you
yeah,
need? What can I help you with? Or what's the situation? And I will give people, before I ever go commit to an hour of lunch, I
yeah,
want to, or hey, just email me what the deal is, and then, or the issue. And what I'll do is I'll give, and I use it as like a buffer, or kind of a, I guess it's kind of a buffer, but like I'll give them action steps. Like the guy that I
right.
can reconnected with, that I went to college with, he said, he's like, first of all, basically before he'd even waste his time talking to me, go read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. Even though we
Yeah,
had a prior experience
yeah,
together in
yeah,
college, he's busy, multimillionaire, hard money lender, house flipper. Like, I get it now.
yeah,
And so he's like, go read this book. And I called him like 2 days later. I'm like, hey, what's next? Like, cause I just jumped on it. I was that hungry. And I
yes,
think that grabbed his attention. He's like, well, I would do this. And so then I did that. Then he sent me some information, and I consumed it. And I emailed him back. I'm
yeah.
like, hey, I listened to what you told me, and here's some questions I have. And, that gets my
You know
attention. It
how
gets me
rare
fired
that is?
up way
That's so
better.
rare. What
Yeah.
you did, like just that effort. Do you know how much you separated yourself from the pack by reading that book in 2 days? Like that's awesome. Yeah,
Yeah. And but it's the same thing that you did, is with seeking them out and finding them. I mean, if I offered on a deal and I got it, and then some other person reached out to me and said, hey, I also offered on it, but I can only pay this. How are you guys paying 18 million for that? Like, I want to know. And I'm in your market. Like, let's work together on this. Like,
yeah,
that would be almost shocking to me that somebody
really,
would do that. You know what I
yeah,
mean? Because it just doesn't happen.
yeah,
And you were able to track them down and get a hold, get through the probably the layers of people that have that kind of, it's not like you're just going to look up Matthew Fairclough's phone number on the internet and call him, I mean,
right, right,
so, but to seek them out and to provide enough to where it stopped them in their tracks of what they were doing, and pivoted and said, hey, let's take this phone call, or hey, let's talk to this person, and yeah,
yeah,
I think that's amazing, man. I did not know that when we met, so that's great. I love it hearing that today.
yeah,
So what's it look like for you? Like, where do you think you're going to go in the next? I know you're still have your single family stuff. You're working on
yep.
that deal with those guys. Like, what does it look like for you after that? Like, I don't know when the plan is, or to sell that, or hold it, or what that looks like. But where do you see yourself going in the next 12 months?
It's I'm a big goal person. I've always been a big, write out your targets, and there's so much value in just putting that in writing, whatever that is. So 2022 was really about enjoying the money. I have been cheap and really just had scarcity mentality. Scarcity mentality is when there's never enough money. You can't enjoy the money. No matter what you make, you just keep saving, keep saving, keep saving, keep
Mm-hmm.
reinvesting. At some point, you got to stop and actually smell the roses. So this year it was all about, like, I've got a small family. I've got 4 kids, 7, 6, 4, and 2. So we just got back from Disney. We just got back Tuesday, and that was a
Awesome.
blast. Just to go, I want to paint the picture. Just go to Disney, and we all know how crazy expensive it is, and not worry about it. Like,
Yeah.
what? Like, if the kids want something, we did a VIP tour that it was just ridiculous. You
Yeah.
don't
I've
know.
heard of those. I've never done one, but I've got a friend that did them, and he's like,
It's
I'll never go back and do it any other way.
Oh, it's like, I mean, I made my kids wait in the line the first day because I want them to understand that it's not like
Yeah.
that. But then we did it the other day, and then we waited in line to others. But my point is stop. This year for me was just about enjoying it, being with the kids, experiencing the freedom that I feel like has always been my goal. Next year, I'm like you. I don't know. I don't know what is 1,000 doors going to make me happy. Like, is that going to really put me over the top or something? Probably not. I think I am more interested in winning together, like you were touching on. At this point, I want to kind of win as a team. I want to build those relationships that I can have the rest of my life, and really just celebrate. I don't see me ever, like Gary says. I'm not a play golf and fishing kind of guy. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think I'll always want to put deals together, but I really do think, and here's my crystal ball sitting over here. the next 24 months are going to be crazy opportunities. Interest rates going through the roof, unprecedented. There's going to be some opportunities that come up. So I really think that, quite honestly, I think the next 12 to 24 months, I'm just going to be making ridiculously insulting offers on multifamily and not really caring whether or not they take it.
Yeah.
Just being transparent. I mean,
No.
there's going to be some blood in the water in the next 24 months. And I don't, I want to be the one sitting there ready to scoop it up.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, if you bought a deal and it only penciled at 4% interest or 5% interest, you know what I mean, at refinance, and now you're at 7 or 6, high sixes, I think. And, you're probably going to get forced to sell, I mean, it just depends on how people underwrote, but I don't know. I don't wish that on anybody, but I know it's going to happen if rates continue to hold out for long periods of time at this, because people that went into bridge debt at 6% or 6.5%, and that runs out, 2 to 3 year term, and now the rates are 9%. It's going to be tough.
It's going to
have a lot of those deals work.
I don't think there's ever been, I don't want to say ever, but certainly in the last 20 years, been a better time to get into real estate than in the next 24 months. So even if it's passively, even if you're just investing, cash, I think there's going to be some windfalls and wealth is going to be transferred. So great opportunity coming up.
Yeah. So in preparation, get in the right rooms with the right people for sure.
100%.
But so let me show. So you got talk about real quick as we're kind of winding this down. Kingsfundinvesting.com is kind of your platform to connect with you. What do you do with King's Fund Investing? Is it for syndications? Is it for just connecting people with real estate, and what else you're doing? Like what is that platform? What will that be for people to connect with?
Yeah, it's a way to contact me would be through that website. It's for anybody that's looking to invest passively. I put up any deals that I'm working on, and if somebody wants to get in, and that could be either a piece of the pie or just a good return on investment. Anybody that's got a wholesale deal that's in the area, and mainly looking at package deals or apartments, multifamily, those type things. But really, it's just a way to get a hold of me and potentially partner up or just form relationships.
Yeah, I love it. Awesome. I know we love your market as well. So
yeah,
hopefully if we find something or you find something, I'm a phone call away.
100%.
Or you are as well, right? So maybe that's what it leads to. We'll see what the next 2 years bring for sure.
Hey, if I get any more $12 million 336 unit apartments,
right? Yeah, if Matt's busy, you call me.
That's right.
But awesome. Well, David, I appreciate you jumping on. I appreciate your time. Hopefully everybody that watches this gets some value from it. And I'll see you guys probably next week sometime. But thanks, David.
Seth, thanks for the opportunity.
Absolutely.